The auction hall smelled like mildew and desperation. Maya Torres sat in the back row, one hand pressed against her swollen belly, the other clutching a crumpled $100 bill that represented everything she had left in the world. 6 months pregnant, recently fired from her waitressing job for being too slow on her feet, and 3 days away from eviction. She had no business being here. But the letter had been specific. The one from the lawyer, handling her estranged father's estate. Antonio Torres had died alone in a VA hospital, leaving behind nothing but debts and a single asset. If you're enjoying this deep dive into the story, hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments from where in the world you are watching from today. Bidding rights to an abandoned vessel at the Portsmouth Harbor Marine Auction. Not the boat itself, just the right to bid on it. A final insult from a man who'd walked out when Maya was 8 and never looked back. She'd almost thrown the letter away. What did she care about some rusty boat her father had cared about more than his own daughter? But then the eviction notice had arrived, and Maya had done the math on her dwindling savings. In $127 left after paying for prenatal vitamins and the deposit on a shared apartment that had fallen through. The auction was today. Minimum bid started at $50 for vessels in the scrap category. Maybe, just maybe, she could buy something, sell it for parts, make enough to buy herself a few more weeks, enough time to figure out what to do before the baby came. The auctioneer was a weathered man in his 60s, speaking in that rapid-fire cadence that made everything sound urgent. Lot 47, the Valiente, 1,967 German-built motor yacht, 58 feet, seized for unpaid harbor fees, sold as is, no warranties, no refunds, condemned status, recommended for immediate scrap. Do I hear $50? Maya's heart hammered. The Valiente. She recognized the name from her father's old photographs, the ones her mother had kept in a shoebox under the bed. Her father standing on a dock in his Navy uniform, young and proud, beside a white yacht that gleamed in the sun. But that had been 40 years ago. The vessel on the screen now looked like it had been dragged up from the ocean floor, hull covered in rust and barnacles, deck sagging, windows shattered. Birds had nested in what remained of the bridge. The crowd was silent. Nobody wanted this disaster. $50. Anyone? This is a 58-foot vessel, folks. Even as scrap, you're looking at salvageable materials. The auctioneer's enthusiasm was unconvincing. Maya raised her hand before she could think better of it. We have $50 from the young lady in the back. Do I hear $75? Silence. The room full of grizzled boat dealers and salvage operators wouldn't touch it. Going once at $50. Going twice. A voice from the middle row. $75. Maya's stomach dropped. She turned to see a man in an expensive suit, mid-50s, with cold eyes that didn't match his polite smile. He wasn't looking at the screen. He was looking at her. $100, Maya said, her voice stronger than she felt. The man's smile tightened. $200. The room suddenly felt charged. Everyone was watching now, sensing something more than a simple auction. $100 is my final offer, Maya said. It's all I have. The auctioneer looked uncomfortable. Sir, we have $100 from the lady. Do you wish to continue at $200? The man stood, straightening his suit. I'll make this simple. I'll give you $5,000 cash, right now, for your bidding rights. No questions asked. Every head in the room turned to Maya. $5,000 would solve her immediate problems, would give her breathing room, a chance to start over. But something in the man's eyes stopped her. Desperation, masked as generosity. He wanted this boat badly, which meant there was something on it worth more than $5,000. The Valiente is mine, Maya said. My father's. I'm keeping my bid at $100. The man's expression darkened. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. The auctioneer banged his gavel, relief evident in his voice. Sold to the young lady for $100. Please see the clerk for paperwork. Maya's hands shook as she paid, watching her last $100 disappear into the cash register. The clerk, a tired woman with reading glasses on a chain, slid a folder across the counter. You'll need to arrange removal within 30 days, or additional fees will apply. The vessel is currently moored at Slip 23, Pier C. It's not seaworthy. You'll need commercial salvage if you're planning to move it. What are the harbor fees? The clerk consulted her computer. Let's see. Valiente has been in municipal custody for 3 years. Outstanding fees are $8,400. Maya's vision swam. I have to pay that. Eventually, yes. Though the municipality typically gives new owners 90 days to arrange payment or disposal. 90 days. She had 90 days before she owed almost $9,000 she didn't have. Outside the auction hall, the October wind carried the salt smell of the harbor. Maya stood on the steps, trying to breathe, trying not to panic. What had she done? Miss Torres? She turned to find the man from the auction standing too close, his cologne expensive and suffocating. I want to apologize for the unpleasantness inside. I got competitive. Bad habit. He extended a hand. Dietrich Kessler. I'm a maritime historian. That vessel has some historical significance to my research. Maya didn't shake his hand. What kind of significance? Your father served in Germany in the 1972nd, correct? Navy Construction Battalion? The Valiente was built in Hamburg in 1967. I believe your father acquired it during his service and brought it back to the States. There may be documentation aboard that could help my research into post-war German shipbuilding. It sounded reasonable, too reasonable. So why offer $5,000 for documents you could just ask to photograph? Kessler's smile never reached his eyes. Because I'm a collector, Miss Torres. I prefer to own my research materials. But since you've chosen to keep the vessel, perhaps we could arrange access. I'd pay handsomely for the opportunity to examine the interior. Say $1,000 for a single day? $1,000 would cover first month's rent somewhere. Would buy diapers and formula for when the baby came. But every instinct Maya had was screaming danger. I need to think about it, she said. Of course. Take your time. He produced a business card, heavy stock with embossed lettering. Call me when you're ready. But don't wait too long. That boat won't survive another winter storm. It would be a shame if its historical significance was lost forever. After he left, Maya stood looking at the business card. Kessler, Maritime Research, with a New York address and a phone number. She pulled out her phone and searched for the name. Nothing. No website, no social media, no academic papers or publications. For a maritime historian, Dietrich Kessler had remarkably little presence online. The harbor was a 20-minute walk. Maya made it in 25, stopping twice to rest, her back aching, the baby pressing against her lungs. Pier C was at the far end of the marina, where vessels went to die. Boats in various states of decay lined the slips, forgotten by owners who'd moved on to better things. The Valiente was in Slip 23, exactly as promised. Up close, it looked even worse than the auction photos. The once white hull was rust orange, green, with algae below the waterline. The deck was warped, railings missing entire sections. The bridge windows were shattered, revealing darkness within. But despite everything, there was something about the lines of it, the way it sat in the water, that suggested it had once been beautiful. A plaque near the bow, corroded but still legible, read, Valiente, Hamburg, 1967. You the one who bought this piece of junk? Maya turned to find an old man in a harbor master's uniform, white beard stained yellow by nicotine. I guess I am. He shook his head. Your money. Your funeral. Fair warning though. She's scheduled for demolition if you don't move her by January. Environmental hazard. Fuel's been leaking for years. If you find this story engaging, please take a moment to subscribe and enable notifications. It helps us continue producing in-depth content like this. Can I go aboard? It's your boat. Not liable if you fall through the deck and drown. He walked away, muttering about people with more money than sense. Maya stood at the edge of the dock, looking at the gap between pier and deck, maybe 3 feet. Easy enough to jump on a normal day. But 6 months pregnant with an aching back? She'd seen videos of women doing incredible things while pregnant. Lifting cars, running marathons. Surely she could manage one small jump. She backed up, took 3 running steps, and leaped. Her feet hit the deck with a thud that resonated through the hull. The deck held. She was aboard her father's boat, on a vessel he'd cared about enough to keep for 40 years. Even if he'd abandoned the daughter who needed him. The main cabin door was stuck, swollen with moisture. Maya threw her shoulder against it once, twice. On the 3rd try, it gave way with a shriek of corroded hinges. The smell hit her like a physical force. Mold, rot, stagnant water. And underneath it all, something chemical and sharp. She pulled her shirt over her nose and stepped inside. The interior was devastation. Cushions had rotted away to expose rusted springs. The navigation station was stripped, wires hanging like exposed veins. Water had pooled in the corners, growing strange patterns of fungus. But there were also signs of habitation. Recent habitation. Fast food wrappers, beer cans, cigarette butts. Someone had been using the boat as a shelter. Homeless people. Probably. The harbor was full of them, seeking refuge from the streets. Maya moved deeper into the vessel, stepping carefully around debris. The galley was destroyed, the head unspeakable. But in the main stateroom aft, she found something that made her stop. A photograph, water-damaged but recognizable, tacked to the wall. Her father, much older than in the Navy photos, maybe 60, standing on this very deck. And beside him, a little girl, 8 years, old, dark hair in pigtails, grinning gap-toothed at the camera. Maya. This photo had been taken the day before her father left. She remembered it now, remembered him promising to take her sailing, remembered waiting for him to come back. He never did. But he'd kept the photo. For 20 years, through whatever hell his life had become, he'd kept this picture on his wall. Maya sank onto the edge of the bunk, emotion crashing over her. She wanted to be angry, wanted to hate him for leaving. But looking at this photo, at the way his hand rested protectively on her shoulder, she saw something else. A man who'd loved his daughter but couldn't save himself. A man who'd left before he destroyed them both. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, as if reminding her that history had a way of repeating itself. She was about to become a mother, alone and broke, just like her own mother had been. Was she doomed to the same cycle? She stood, wiping her eyes, and continued her search. If there was, of anything of value here, she needed to find it. In the navigation station, she found her father's old logbooks, pages swollen with moisture, but still legible. Most entries were mundane: engine hours, fuel consumption, weather conditions. But one entry, dated 3 months before his death, caught her eye. They're getting closer. Can't keep this secret much longer. If something happens to me, it's all for Maya. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her I loved her even when I couldn't show it. The Valiente remembers what I tried to forget. Maya's hands shook. What secret? What did the boat remember? She kept searching, moving to the forward cabin. The door was locked, the only door on the entire boat that was still secured. She tried the handle, threw her shoulder against it. The wood was solid, reinforced. This was different from the rest of the boat. Someone had wanted this cabin to stay closed. She went back outside and found a rusted fire axe in an emergency locker. The blade was dull, but it would do. She swung it at the door, feeling every impact jarring up her arms, making her shoulders ache. The baby protested with violent kicks. I know, Maya panted. Mama's crazy. But we need to see what's in there. After 10 minutes of steady assault, the door frame splintered. Maya kicked it open and aimed her phone's flashlight inside. The forward cabin was different. Dry. Preserved. Someone had sealed it carefully, keeping the rot at bay. And in the center of the space, built into the floor, was a hatch secured with a heavy-duty padlock. Maya's heart raced. She'd worked enough minimum-wage jobs to know what hidden compartments meant. Drugs, probably. Her father had been desperate, might have gotten involved with smuggling. But when she cut through the padlock with a hacksaw from the emergency locker and lifted the hatch, she found something else entirely. The compartment was deep, maybe 5 feet, and lined with what looked like lead. And inside, wrapped in heavy plastic and sealed with tape that had somehow survived the decades, were rows of rectangular objects. Maya pulled one out. Heavy. Impossibly heavy. She tore through the plastic wrapping with shaking hands. Gold. A solid bar of gold, stamped with symbols that made her blood run cold. An eagle. A swastika. Serial numbers. Nazi gold. She dropped it, backing away, heart hammering. This couldn't be real. Couldn't be happening. But when she aimed her light back into the compartment, she saw more. Dozens more. Stacked in neat rows, each one wrapped and sealed. She forced herself to count. 47 bars total. She'd taken history classes, knew roughly what gold was worth. Each bar looked to be about 25 pounds, maybe 400 ounces. At current prices, roughly $800,000 per bar. 47 bars. Maya's mind couldn't process the number, couldn't comprehend what she was looking at. $189 million in Nazi gold, hidden in her father's boat, in a vessel he'd protected for 40 years, despite having nothing else. The boat lurched suddenly, the wake from a passing vessel causing it to rock. Maya grabbed the edge of the hatch to steady herself, her other hand instinctively protecting her belly. She needed to think, needed to understand. Her father had been in Germany in the 72nds, part of a construction battalion. Had he found this gold? Stolen it? Was that why he'd left? Why he'd spent the rest of his life hiding? She pulled out her phone to call someone, anyone, but stopped. Who could she trust with this? The police. They'd seize it. Ask questions she couldn't answer. Questions about her father, about whether she'd known, about whether she was complicit. That Kessler man appeared at the auction the same day she bid on the boat. That couldn't be coincidence. He knew. Somehow, he knew what was hidden here, which meant others might know too. Maya heard footsteps on the deck above. She froze, listening. Multiple sets of footsteps. Careful, deliberate. Not the harbor master's heavy tread. Miss Torres? The woman's voice. Young. Professional. My name is Sarah Chen. I'm with the FBI's art crime team. We'd like to talk to you about the Valiente. Maya's mouth went dry. How did they know she was here? She'd only just found the gold herself. Unless they'd been watching the boat, watching to see who claimed it. She climbed the ladder out of the forward cabin, moving as quickly as her pregnant body would allow. On deck, she found 3 people. A young Asian woman in an FBI windbreaker, an older man in a suit who had cop written all over him, and a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and the bearing of an academic. "We're not here to arrest you," Sarah Chen said, holding up her hands in a gesture of peace. "We just want to talk." "About what?" "About your father. About what he found in Hamburg in 1979. About the SS Nordland shipment." The older woman stepped forward. "I'm Dr. Rachel Hoffman from the Holocaust Museum's Asset Recovery Initiative. Miss Torres. We've been tracking this gold for 45 years. Maya looked between them, trying to gauge the threat. "I don't know what you're talking about. I only just bought this boat an hour ago." "We know," the cop said. His voice was gravel and cigarettes. "Detective Frank Morrison, Portsmouth PD. We've been watching the Valiente since your father died, waiting to see who would claim it." "So you've been spying on me?" "Protecting you," Sarah corrected. You weren't the only one at that auction who knew what this boat might contain. Dietrich Kessler has been hunting this gold for 30 years. His grandfather was the SS officer who hid it. Maya felt like the deck was tilting under her feet. His grandfather, Karl Kessler, SS Hauptsturmführer, responsible for looting Jewish families in Prague and Munich in 1944. When the Reich fell, he disappeared with several million in gold. We thought he'd gotten it out of Germany, taken it to Argentina with the other rats. But your father proved us wrong. Dr. Hoffman pulled out a tablet, showing Maya a black and white photograph. A young man in an SS uniform, cold-eyed and proud. Then she swiped to a color photo. The same man, 80 years old, dead in a nursing home bed in Paraguay. Karl died last year. On his deathbed, he told his grandson where he'd hidden the gold. In a building in Hamburg, a warehouse scheduled for demolition. Except by the time Dietrich got there, the building was already gone, and the gold with it. My father's construction battalion, Maya said quietly. They demolished that building. In April 1979. Sarah confirmed. Your father found the gold during the demolition. Found it and faced an impossible choice. Maya sank onto the deck, legs giving out. The baby kicked against her ribs, oblivious to the enormity of what was unfolding. Tell me, she said. Tell me everything. Dr. Hoffman sat beside her, tablet showing documents, photographs, pieces of history that Maya had never wanted to know. The gold was stolen from 86 families. We have the records, names, addresses, everything the Nazis documented with their usual efficiency. Some families died in the camps, but many survived, scattered across the world, never knowing what happened to the wealth they'd been forced to surrender. After the war, survivor organizations spent decades trying to trace Nazi plunder, but so much had disappeared, hidden by SS officers who thought they'd come back for it someday. Karl Kessler was one of the smart ones. He hid his stash before fleeing, buried it in the walls of a warehouse he knew wouldn't be touched for decades. He was almost right. Sarah took over the narrative. Your father found the gold while tearing down that warehouse. He was 28 years old, engaged to your mother, planning a life. Suddenly he had millions in stolen Nazi gold. He could have kept it, sold it, disappeared. Instead, he hid it in this boat and spent the next 40 years trying to figure out how to return it without destroying his life. Why didn't he just turn it in? Maya asked, though part of her already knew. Because he'd already sold a few bars, Detective Morrison said. We found the records. He sold 3 bars in 1980, trying to raise money to bring the boat home from Germany. By the time he realized what he'd done, he was already complicit, already a thief in the eyes of the law. Dr. Hoffman's voice was gentle. Your father spent the rest of his life trying to make it right. He compiled lists of the families, traced survivors, documented everything, but he couldn't find a way to return the gold without going to prison, without losing you and your mother. Maya felt tears burning down her cheeks. So he left instead. Left before he destroyed us with his secret. He never stopped trying, Sarah said. We found journals in his apartment after he died. Letters he wrote but never sent. Apologies to the families, explanations he could never give. He died trying to protect you from this burden. But it's mine now, Maya said. The burden. The choice. Yes, Dr. Hoffman confirmed. And you're facing the same impossible decision your father did. Maya stood, moving to the rail, looking out at the grey harbor water. Somewhere beneath those waves were people's dreams, boats that had sunk carrying hopes and cargo. Her father had carried his own sunken dreams for 40 years. What happens if I turn it in? She asked. You're protected, Sarah said. Full immunity. You didn't know about the gold until today. You inherited a boat, found something hidden inside, reported it immediately. You're a witness, not a criminal. And the families? Maya turned to Dr. Hoffman. What happens to them? The older woman's eyes were bright with emotion. They get justice. After 80 years, they get something back. Not their lives, not their murdered children, but acknowledgement. Proof that what was stolen from them mattered. That someone remembered. And I get nothing? Maya heard the bitterness in her own voice. I'm 6 months, pregnant, broke, about to be homeless. My father died protecting this gold, and I'm supposed to just hand it over. For justice? No, a new voice said. Maya turned to see a man climbing aboard, late 60s, carrying himself with the weight of authority. You get something far more valuable. You get to be the person your father wished he could have been. He extended his hand. James Maxwell, Attorney General's office. We've been watching this case for years, waiting for someone to do the right thing. Well, maybe I don't want to do the right thing, Maya said. Maybe I want to do the thing that keeps my baby fed and housed. Maxwell nodded. That's fair. So let's talk about what happens if you keep it. First, you'll need to explain how a waitress with no money suddenly has access to millions in gold. Every sale will be tracked, reported, investigated. You'll spend years in legal battles, fighting allegations of theft, smuggling, money laundering. Second, Dietrich Kessler will never stop hunting you. His grandfather's legacy is worth more to him than your life or your child's. He'll come for this gold, and he won't be polite about it. Third, you'll live the rest of your life knowing that 86 families never got justice because you needed a down payment on a house. That the people who lost everything, whose children were murdered, whose lives were destroyed, stayed victims because you were broke. Maya felt something break inside her. He was right. She knew he was right. But it was so unfair. My father carried this burden for 40 years, and it killed him. Now, you want me to give up the only thing he left me? The only thing that could save my child's future? Dr. Hoffman stood, moving beside Maya. Your father left you something far more valuable than gold. He left you a chance to make right what went wrong, to break a cycle of theft and silence, to show your child that some things matter more than money. The baby kicked again, hard enough to make Maya gasp. She put her hand on her belly, feeling the life growing inside her. What kind of world did she want to bring this child into? One where justice mattered less than survival? Where stolen wealth was just wealth, regardless of the blood on it? She thought about her father, young and desperate, staring at gold bars and seeing both salvation and damnation. He'd chosen to hide them, protect them, carry the weight alone, and it had destroyed him. She could make a different choice. What's the process? She asked finally, voice barely above a whisper. Sarah stepped forward, relief evident in her posture. We secure the gold, document everything. You give a full statement about the discovery. We begin the authentication and restitution process. Dr. Hoffman's team traces the families. How long? For full restitution? Years. Dr. Hoffman admitted, this is delicate work. But we'll begin returning assets within 6 months. Some families we've already located. They've been waiting for this news. And I really get immunity. Maya looked at Maxwell. Full immunity, he confirmed. More than that, there's a whistleblower provision in cultural property law. You're entitled to 10% of the verified value as a finder's fee. Maya's mind struggled with the math. 10% of $189 million. That was $18.9 million. More than she could spend in a lifetime. That's too much, she said. I didn't do anything to earn it. Maxwell smiled. You chose justice over survival. That's worth more than gold. The next hours passed in a blur. FBI agents arrived with equipment, carefully extracting each gold bar, cataloging serial numbers, photographing everything. News vans appeared at the marina entrance, held back by police but their cameras capturing the moment. Maya Torres, 6 months pregnant and standing on a rotting boat, became the woman who returned $189 million in Nazi gold. Dr. Hoffman stayed beside her through all of it, a gentle presence in the chaos. "I've been doing this work for 40 years, the older woman said as they watched agents carry out another bar. "I've seen so much stolen wealth returned. But this is extraordinary. Because of the amount, because of the choice," Dr. Hoffman corrected. "Most people who find Nazi gold are collectors, institutions, people with resources who can afford to do the right thing. But you're broke and pregnant and facing homelessness, and you still chose justice. That's humanity at its best." Maya watched the sun set over the harbor, painting the water orange and gold. She thought about her father, about the photo on the wall, about the love he'd shown the only way he knew how, by protecting her from this burden even as it killed him. "He never told me about the gold," Maya said. "But he left me the boat, left me the chance to make things right. I think he always hoped I would. He knew his daughter," Dr. Hoffman said, "knew you had the strength he couldn't find." That evening, after the agents had secured the gold and the press had been briefed, Sarah drove Maya to a hotel. Government paid, security posted outside, protection until this was resolved. Maya lay in bed, hand on her belly, trying to process everything. She'd woken up that morning with $127. She'd spent $100 on a rotting boat, and now she was going to be a millionaire. It didn't feel real. Her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She almost didn't answer. "Miss Torres?" A man's voice. Accented. Cold. "Dietrich Kessler. I want you to know that you've made a terrible mistake. That gold belongs to my family. My grandfather earned it, protected it. You have no right. Your grandfather stole it from people he murdered," Maya said. "I have every right. The law may disagree. I'll be filing suit for rightful ownership. This will destroy you. Then I'll see you in court, Mr. Kessler. Bring documentation of your grandfather's SS rank. I'm sure the families would love to hear about his war record." She hung up, hands shaking but voice steady. The next morning, Maya woke to find her phone flooded with messages. News coverage had gone international. Pregnant single mother returns Nazi gold. Hero waitress chooses justice over fortune. Father's burden lifted by daughter's courage. But one message stood out. From an unknown number with an international code. "Miss Torres, my name is Ruth Goldstein. I'm 91 years old. I live in Tel Aviv. The gold you found belonged to my family. My father's jewelry business in Prague. The Nazis took everything in 1944. Papa died in Auschwitz. Mama too. I survived hidden by a Christian family. I've spent 80 years wondering what happened to our wealth, wondering if anyone remembered we existed. You gave me an answer. You remembered us. Thank you. Thank you for seeing us, for knowing our gold mattered less than our memory." Maya read the message 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This was why. This was what mattered. 3 weeks later, Maya attended the first restitution ceremony at the Holocaust Museum in Washington. Dr. Hoffman had arranged everything, ensured Maya was comfortable, protected her from the media crush. The ceremony was small, private, just the families, museum staff, government officials. Maya sat in the back, trying to be invisible. But Dr. Hoffman insisted she come forward. Maya Torres could have kept the gold her father found. She was broke, pregnant, desperate. Every rational reason told her to stay silent. But she chose differently. She chose to see the human cost behind the bars of gold, to honor the families who'd lost everything. Today we return a portion of what was stolen. It's not enough. It can never be enough. But it's acknowledgement. It's memory. It's justice. One by one, representatives of the 86 families came forward. Some were old, survivors themselves, tears streaming down weathered faces. Others were grandchildren, great-grandchildren, carrying the weight of stories passed down. Ruth Goldstein was there, 91 and fierce, gripping a cane and Maya's hand with equal strength. "You gave me closure," the old woman said. "Gave me proof that my parents' lives mattered. That what was stolen from us wasn't forgotten. I have no words for what that means." Maya held her, feeling the baby kick between them. 3 generations touching across history's wounds. "I did what my father couldn't," she whispered. "I finished his work." The legal proceedings took months. Dietrich Kessler filed his lawsuit as promised, claiming his grandfather had legitimate ownership. The court dismissed it in 3 minutes. The judge's contempt evident. "Your grandfather was a war criminal who stole from families before murdering them. This court recognizes no legitimate claim to plunder." Kessler tried to appeal, but public opinion had turned savagely against him. His business folded, his reputation destroyed. Last Maya heard, he'd left the country, fleeing the consequences of defending the indefensible. The finder's fee took longer to process. Verification, authentication, family claims all had to be resolved first. But finally, 9 months after she'd spent her last $100 on a rotting boat, Maya received a check, $18.9 million. More money than she could imagine. Enough to change everything. The baby came 3 days later. A girl, born healthy and perfect. Maya named her Anna, after her grandmother, Anna Torres. Born into wealth her great-grandfather had tried to steal. Her grandfather had tried to protect. Her mother had chosen to return. Born into a legacy of choosing right over easy. Maya bought a small house near the coast, nothing extravagant. Set up college funds. Established a foundation to support single mothers in crisis. Gave massive donations to Holocaust education and survivor support. The rest she invested carefully, wanting security for Anna without the corruption of too much wealth. The Valiente was restored, not to luxury but to dignity. Maya donated it to the Maritime Museum, where it became part of an exhibition on World War II plunder and restitution. School groups toured it, learning about the cost of silence and the courage of speaking truth. One display showed her father's photograph, young and proud beside the yacht that would become his prison. Another showed Maya, pregnant and determined, choosing justice. "These are heroes," the museum guide would say, not because they were perfect, but because they faced impossible choices and did their best to choose right. 5 years later, Maya brought Anna to the museum. Her daughter was fascinated by the boats, by the stories, by the grandfather she'd never known. "Mama, why did great-grandfather keep the gold so long?" the little girl asked, staring at his photograph. Maya knelt beside her. "Because he was scared, baby. Scared of doing the wrong thing and scared of doing the right thing. Sometimes grown-ups get frozen between choices. But you weren't scared." "Oh, I was terrified. But I had something your great-grandfather didn't." "What?" "I had you," Maya said, hand on her daughter's hair. "I knew I wanted to raise you in a world where justice mattered more than money. Where the right choice was the choice that helped others, even when it cost you." Anna considered this seriously. "I'm glad you chose that world, Mama." "Me too, baby. Me too." They walked through the exhibition, past displays of returned artifacts, photographs of families reunited with their heritage, past the testimonials from survivors and descendants thanking Maya for her courage. But the display that made Maya stop was a letter, framed behind glass, written in shaky handwriting, dated 2 weeks before her father's death. "To whoever finds this, I have carried shame for 40 years. Shame for taking what wasn't mine, even with good intentions. Shame for not being brave enough to make it right. If you're reading this, I'm gone. The gold is yours to decide. But please, if you can, give it back. Not for me. Not for absolution. But for the families who lost everything. They deserve to be remembered. They deserve justice. I failed them. Maybe you can succeed where I failed. With love and regret. Antonio Torres." Maya had read it 100 times, but it still made her cry. Her father hadn't been a bad man, just a broken one, trying to do right with broken tools. "Mama, why are you sad?" Anna asked. "I'm not sad, baby. I'm grateful." "For what?" "For the choice," Maya thought. "For the burden that became a blessing. For the father who taught her, even in his failures, what mattered most." But what she said was simpler. "For you. For this moment. For knowing I made the right choice." They left the museum as the sun set, painting the harbor gold. Anna chatted about boats and treasure and heroes. Maya listened, holding her daughter's hand, thinking about the threads that connected them all. The families in Prague, whose gold had bought her freedom. The father, who'd carried shame until it killed him. The choice she'd made, that transformed a legacy of theft into a legacy of justice. She'd been mocked for buying a worthless boat with her last $100. People had called her foolish, desperate, stupid. She'd faced threats, legal battles, a grandson of Nazis trying to reclaim his grandfather's plunder. But in the end, she'd discovered something worth more than $189 million. She'd discovered that ordinary people could make extraordinary choices, that a broke, pregnant waitress could change history, that justice delayed wasn't justice denied if someone, finally, chose to make things right. The Valiente still sat in the harbor, restored and gleaming, but Maya rarely visited. That boat was the past, a symbol of choices made and burdens carried. Her life now was about the future, about Anna growing up strong and principled, about using her wealth to help others facing impossible choices, about teaching her daughter that some treasures couldn't be measured in gold. The finder's fee had made her rich, but the choice had made her whole. 10 years after the discovery, Maya returned to the museum for the dedication of a permanent exhibition. From Plunder to Justice, the story of the Valiente gold. It documented everything from the original theft in Prague to the restitution ceremonies. Dr. Hoffman, now retired, stood beside her. "You changed lives," the older woman said. 86 families received justice because of you. "Because of my father," Maya corrected. "He's the one who protected it all those years. I just finished what he started." "You did more than that. You showed the world that doing the right thing still matters. In an age of cynicism and greed, you chose differently." They watched visitors move through the exhibition, pausing at displays, reading testimonials. One caught Maya's attention. A young couple, maybe mid-20s, standing before the photograph of the gold bars as they'd been found. "Can you imagine?" the woman was saying. "Finding that much money when you're broke and pregnant? I don't know if I could give it up." Her partner squeezed her hand. "That's what makes her a hero. She could have kept it. She chose not to." Maya smiled and moved on. That was the legacy she wanted. Not to be seen as a saint or a martyr, but as someone who'd faced a hard choice and made the better one. Someone who'd proven that ordinary people, in moments of crisis, could be extraordinary. That night, she read Anna, a bedtime story about a girl who found treasure and had to decide what to do with it. A children's book Dr. Hoffman had sent, loosely based on their story. "What would you do, Mama?" Anna asked. "If you found treasure." "Depends on the treasure," Maya said. "And where it came from. What if it was stolen treasure? Like in your story." Maya thought about the golden bars, the weight of history, the families waiting for justice. "I'd ask myself what world I wanted you to grow up in. One where taking what isn't yours is okay as long as you don't get caught. Or one where doing the right thing matters more than being rich." "The second one," Anna said firmly. "Good. That's the world I'm building for you." She tucked her daughter in, kissed her forehead, and stood in the doorway watching her sleep. The baby who'd been with her through everything, kicking against her ribs as she'd made the hardest choice of her life. Outside, the stars were bright. Maya stood on her small deck, listening to the ocean, thinking about her father, about the young Navy man who'd found gold and made a terrible choice that defined the rest of his life, about the old man who'd died still trying to make it right. "I did it, Papa," she whispered to the wind. "I finished your work. The families got their gold. The story got told. You can rest now." The wind carried her words away, out over the water, toward whatever lay beyond. Maya hoped, wherever her father was, he could finally be at peace. The next morning, she woke to find an email from Dr. Hoffman. Subject line, "You need to see this." The email contained a link to a news story. Last survivor of Goldstein, family passes at 96. Ruth Goldstein, who survived the Holocaust hidden by a Christian family in Prague, died peacefully in Tel Aviv, surrounded by family. According to her daughter, Mrs. Goldstein's last words were about the return of her family's stolen gold in 2023. She said it gave her closure. The daughter was quoted. For 80 years, she wondered if anyone remembered her parents, if their lives had mattered. When their gold was returned, when she saw someone had cared enough to make it right, it healed something in her. She died, knowing she was seen. Maya read the article 3 times, tears streaming down her face. This was why. This was what mattered. Not the money she'd been given as a reward, not the praise or the hero worship, but this, knowing that an old woman had died in peace because Maya had made a choice. She forwarded the article to Anna's email. Something for her daughter to read when she was older. Something to remind her that the choices we make echo through other people's lives in ways we can never fully know. At Ruth Goldstein's memorial service, held at the Holocaust Museum, Maya was asked to speak. She stood at the podium, looking at the faces of survivors and their families, and spoke from the heart. "I never met Mrs. Goldstein in person, though we corresponded. She sent me letters, told me stories about her family, about the jewelry store in Prague, about her father who had a gift for making people smile. She thanked me for returning what was stolen. But I want to thank her. Thank her for surviving, for carrying her family's memory, for never letting the world forget what was taken. She made my choice easy. Because when I found that gold, I wasn't just finding metal. I was finding her father's legacy, her mother's sacrifice, the proof that they existed, that they mattered, that their lives meant something. How could I keep that? Mrs. Goldstein taught me that justice isn't just about money or property. It's about acknowledgement, about saying, "I see you. Your suffering mattered. Your loss mattered. You mattered." She's gone now, but her lessons remain, and I promise to teach them to my daughter, who will teach them to hers. The cycle of theft and silence is broken. The cycle of memory and justice continues. The audience stood, applause mixing with tears. Maya saw Anna in the front row, eyes wide, beginning to understand the weight of what her mother had done. After the service, families approached Maya one by one. Some thanked her. Others shared stories of their own losses and returns. Each one reinforced her choice, proved that she'd done the right thing, even when the right thing had been terrifying. The head of the restitution initiative, Dr. Hoffman's successor, pulled Maya aside. "We've been tracking the impact of your choice," he said. "In the last 10 years, we've seen a 400% increase in voluntary returns of Nazi plunder. People who'd been sitting on stolen artwork, jewelry, documents. Your story inspired them to come forward. That's what you did, Maya. You didn't just return gold. You changed the culture, made it clear that there's no statute of limitations on doing the right thing." Maya drove home that evening, Anna asleep in the back seat, and thought about legacy. Not the legacy of wealth or fame, but the legacy of choices. Her father had made choices that haunted him. She'd made different choices that freed them both. And Anna would make her own choices someday, guided by the lessons of both. The Valiente sat in the harbor, illuminated by moonlight. Maya pulled over, looking at the boat that had changed everything. It didn't look sinister anymore, just sad. A vessel that had carried secrets too heavy for one man to bear. But those secrets were free now. The families had their justice. The story had been told. And Maya Torres, who'd spent her last $100 on a rotting boat, had discovered that the truest wealth wasn't measured in gold. It was measured in the peace you carried, the legacy you left, the choice you made when everything was on the line. She'd chosen justice over survival, memory over money, truth over comfort, and in doing so, she'd given her daughter something no amount of gold could buy. A world where doing the right thing still mattered, where one person's courage could make a difference, where the sins of the past could be acknowledged, if not fully healed. Anna stirred in the back seat. "Mama, are we home?" "Almost, baby. Almost." They drove away from the harbor, away from the boat and its ghosts, toward the small house where warmth and safety waited. The finder's fee sat in the bank, earning interest, funding scholarships, and survivor support programs. But the real treasure was already home. It was in Anna's laughter, in the peace Maya felt each night, in knowing she'd broken a cycle of silence that had lasted 80 years. She'd been mocked for that $100 purchase, called foolish and desperate, but she'd found something worth more than $189 million in that rotting hull. She'd found her father's redemption, the family's justice, her own integrity, and the greatest treasure of all, the certainty that when her daughter asked, "What would you do, Mama?" she could answer honestly, without shame, without regret. "I'd do the right thing, even if it cost me everything." Because some treasures aren't meant to be kept. They're meant to be returned to where they belong. The Valiente was sold eventually to a museum in Germany that specialized in World War II history. It sits there now, restored and gleaming, no longer hiding secrets but telling truths. School children tour it, learning about the cost of silence and the courage of speaking up. And sometimes, when Maya visits with Anna, she stands on the deck where she'd first found the gold, hand on her daughter's shoulder, exactly like her father had stood with her all those years ago. Full circle. History healed, if not erased. 3 generations connected by choices made and burdens lifted. "I'm proud of you, Mama," Anna says, understanding more now at 15 than Maya had at 30. "You could have been rich." "I am rich," Maya corrects. "I have you. I have peace. I have the knowledge that I helped heal something broken. That's wealth no gold bar can match." They stand together, mother and daughter, as the sun sets over the harbor. The same harbor where Antonio Torres had hidden his shame, where Maya Torres had found her courage, where Ana Torres learned the most valuable lesson of all, that doing the right thing isn't easy, but it's always worth it. Because treasures rust and fade. But justice, once claimed, echoes through generations. And sometimes, the most valuable inheritance isn't what you're given. It's the choice you make about what to do with it. Maya chose justice, and in doing so, she gave her daughter something no Nazi could ever steal. The knowledge that one person, armed only with courage and conscience, can change the world. The years that followed became a tapestry of moments both profound and ordinary. Anna grew from a curious child into a thoughtful teenager, her understanding of her family's legacy deepening with each passing year. She asked harder questions as she got older, questions Maya sometimes struggled to answer with the complexity they deserved. "Did you ever regret it?" Anna asked one evening when she was 16, home from a school trip to the Holocaust Museum, where she'd seen the Valiente exhibition for the dozenth time. They were sitting on their deck, watching the sun paint the ocean in shades of amber and rose. Maya considered the question carefully. She'd learned that her daughter deserved honest answers, not comfortable ones. There were moments, she admitted, moments when bills piled up, or when I saw other people buying things without thinking about cost, or when I imagined what our lives could have been with that kind of money. But regret? No. Because every time I thought about keeping it, I remembered Ruth Goldstein's letter. I remembered those 86 families, and I knew I couldn't live with myself if I'd chosen differently. Anna nodded, processing this. "My teacher said what you did was extraordinary, but you always say, it was just the right thing. Both can be true, Maya said. It was the right thing, which should be ordinary. The fact that it's considered extraordinary says more about our world than about me. The conversation stayed with Maya long after Anna went to bed. She thought about how their lives had unfolded, the path they'd walked because of one choice made in a moment of crisis. The finder's fee had provided security, yes, but it had also brought complications. There were people who thought she should have given all of it away, who criticized her for accepting any payment at all. There were others who thought she'd been foolish, who told her she could have kept everything if she'd just been smart about it. But the voices that mattered most were the ones from the families. Over the years, Maya had corresponded with dozens of descendants of the 86 families. Some had become friends, their connection forged in the unusual bond of shared history and healing. They sent birthday cards to Anna, invited Maya to weddings and bar mitzvahs, treated her like family because, in a way, she'd given them back their family history. Sarah Friedman, granddaughter of one of the Prague families, had become particularly close. She was a historian herself, working on a comprehensive documentation of Jewish life in Czechoslovakia before the war. She'd used the recovered gold as a centerpiece of her research, tracing not just what was stolen, but what was lost, the community that had been destroyed, the culture that had been nearly erased. "You gave me more than gold," Sarah had told Maya during one of her visits. "You gave me proof that my family's story mattered, that they weren't just numbers in a camp registry. They were people who built businesses, created beauty, lived full lives before it was all taken away." Maya had helped fund Sarah's research, using a portion of her finder's fee to establish a grant program for Holocaust historians. It felt right, using money that had come from returning stolen wealth to ensure the stories of theft and survival were never forgotten. The foundation Maya had established grew beyond her initial vision. It started as a simple fund to help single mothers in crisis, offering rent assistance, childcare vouchers, job training, but as word spread about who had founded it and why, it attracted attention from other donors, from corporations looking for worthy causes, from wealthy individuals who saw in Maya's story a kind of moral clarity they wanted to support. Within 5 years, the Torres Foundation was operating in 12 states, helping thousands of women each year. Maya hired professional staff to run the day-to-day operations, but she stayed involved in the mission, serving on the board, meeting with recipients, listening to their stories. Each woman she helped felt like a small repayment of the debt she could never fully settle, the debt to the universe for having been given a choice and the courage to make it. But success brought its own challenges. The more public Maya became, the more people wanted from her. She was invited to speak at conferences, to serve on boards, to lend her name and story to various causes. Some were legitimate, aligned with her values. Others felt opportunistic, people trying to profit from her moral authority. She learned to say no, a skill that didn't come naturally to someone who'd spent years as a waitress trained to please others. She learned to protect her time with Anna, to prioritize the quiet moments of motherhood over the public demands of being Maya Torres, the woman who returned the Nazi gold. It wasn't always easy. There were people who felt entitled to her attention, her money, her story. There were journalists who pushed for details she didn't want to share, who wanted to mine her trauma for compelling content. There were even a few who questioned whether her story was true, conspiracy theorists who insisted the gold had never existed or that she'd kept most of it for herself. Maya learned to live with the criticism, the scrutiny, the loss of privacy that came with her choice. It was part of the price, she understood, not as painful as the price her father had paid, but real nonetheless. Detective Morrison, who'd been there that first day on the Valiente, stayed in touch over the years. He'd retired from the force, but continued to work as a consultant on art crime cases. He'd call Maya occasionally, updating her on developments in the world of Holocaust asset recovery. asking her advice on cases where people had found stolen property and weren't sure what to do. "You've become a model," he told her during one such call when Anna was 17. "When people find Nazi plunder now, investigators point to your case. Show them what happened when someone did the right thing, how you were protected, compensated, honored. It makes others more willing to come forward." "That's good," Maya said. "That's what it should be. Doing the right thing shouldn't destroy your life. It nearly destroyed your father's life," Morrison reminded her gently. "The difference was, you had support. You had us, the FBI, the museum, the Attorney General's office. Your father was alone." Maya thought about that often, how different things might have been if her father had found someone to trust, someone who could have helped him navigate the impossible situation he'd stumbled into. Would he have lived longer? Been happier? Stayed in their lives? She'd worked through her anger at him over the years, with the help of a therapist who specialized in complicated grief. She'd come to understand that Antonio Torres had been broken by the war in ways that predated his discovery of the gold. The gold had just been the weight that finally crushed a man already barely standing. On what would have been her father's 75th birthday, Maya took Anna to his grave for the first time. She'd avoided it for years, not sure what she'd feel standing at the place where his troubled life had ended. But Anna had asked to go, and Maya couldn't refuse. The cemetery was small, on a hill overlooking the ocean. Her father's stone was simple: Antonio Torres, beloved father, the dates of his birth and death, and below that, an addition Maya had made years after his burial. He carried the weight, so his daughter could be free. Anna stood reading the stone for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "He saved you, didn't he? Not by being there, but by leaving you the choice he couldn't make." Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. "He was a broken man who did a broken thing, trying to do right. And yes, in the end, he saved me. He saved both of us." They sat by the grave for an hour, Maya telling Anna stories about her father that she'd kept locked away for years. The good memories, before the drinking and the disappearing, before whatever darkness had consumed him. She told Anna about the day he'd taught her to swim, holding her in the waves, promising he'd never let her go. About the birthday, when he'd scraped together money for a bike, even though it meant he went without for weeks. About the look in his eyes when he held her, a mixture of love and fear that she understood now, the fear of failing someone you loved so desperately. "I wish I could have known him," Anna said. "He would have loved you," Maya said. "Would have been so proud of the person you're becoming." As Anna grew closer to college age, she began to grapple with her own complicated relationship to their family wealth. She'd grown up comfortable but not extravagant, Maya, having deliberately kept their lifestyle modest. But Anna was smart enough to understand that her college would be paid for without debt, that her future was secure in ways most of her peers couldn't imagine, all because of a choice her mother had made before she was born. "I feel guilty sometimes," Anna confessed one night during her senior year. "My friends are stressed about scholarships and student loans, and I don't have to worry. It feels unfair." Maya understood the feeling all too well. Life is unfair, baby. Some people are born with advantages, others with disadvantages. What matters is what you do with what you're given. You didn't ask for this wealth, but you have it. The question is, what kind of person it will help you become? What kind of person do you want me to be? "I want you to be someone who remembers where it came from," Maya said. "Someone who understands that your security was bought with other people's suffering, even though you had nothing to do with that suffering. Someone who uses her advantages to help others, to make the world more just, to be a voice for people who aren't heard." Anna attended Georgetown, studying international law with a focus on human rights. She interned at the Holocaust Museum, working with Dr. Hoffman's successor on new restitution cases. She spent a summer in Israel, meeting with survivors and their families, collecting oral histories, bearing witness to stories that needed to be told. She came home, changed, more serious, more committed. "I understand now," she told Maya. "Why you had to return the gold. It's not about the money. It's about acknowledging what was taken, who it was taken from. It's about saying that theft doesn't become legitimate just because time passes." Maya watched her daughter grow into exactly the kind of person she'd hoped to raise. Someone with compassion, integrity, and a deep sense of justice. The kind of person who would make hard choices because they were right, not because they were easy. The Valiente exhibition at the museum underwent a major renovation when Anna was in college. The new version was more comprehensive, including interactive elements, survivor testimonies, and a section on modern asset recovery. Maya was invited to the opening, along with as many of the family representatives as could attend. She stood in the newly designed space, watching visitors move through the exhibits, and felt a sense of completion. This was the story now, not locked away in shame, but told openly, honestly. The theft, the long silence, the choice to make things right, the ongoing work of justice. A young woman approached her, maybe early 20s, with a face that seemed familiar. "Miss Torres? I'm Rachel Goldstein. Ruth Goldstein was my great-grandmother." Maya's breath caught. She saw it now, the resemblance to the old woman she'd corresponded with, but never met in person. "Your great-grandmother. She wrote me such beautiful letters. She talked about you constantly," Rachel said. "About how you gave her peace before she died. I'm at Columbia now, studying to be a rabbi. I want to work in interfaith dialogue, building bridges between communities. My great-grandmother's story, and yours, showed me that healing is possible if people are willing to do hard things." They talked for an hour, Maya learning about Ruth's family, about the life she'd built after surviving the unsurvivable. Rachel shared photos on her phone, 4 generations of Goldsteins who existed because Ruth had survived, because she'd lived long enough to know that someone had remembered her parents, had cared enough to return what was stolen. "You didn't just give back gold," Rachel said. "You gave back dignity. You proved that the world hadn't forgotten. That matters more than you can possibly know." After Rachel left, Maya found herself alone in front of the exhibit, showing the letter her father had written, the one she had found framed at the museum years ago. She read it again, his shaky handwriting, his plea for whoever found the gold to do what he couldn't. "I did it, Papa," she whispered, as she had so many times before. "Your burden is lifted. You can rest." But this time, she felt something shift, a release she hadn't known she was still holding. Her father's choices had been his own, made in circumstances she'd never fully understand, but she'd made different choices. Broken the cycle, created a new legacy. She could let him rest now, could let herself rest too. The legal landscape around Nazi asset recovery had changed significantly in the years following Maya's case. Partly because of her story, new laws were passed, making it safer for finders to come forward, ensuring they'd be protected and fairly compensated. The Torres provision, as it became known informally, established clear guidelines for immunity and finders' fees in cases of recovered Holocaust plunder. Maya was invited to Washington to attend the signing ceremony when the provision became federal law. She stood with legislators, survivors, and museum directors as the president signed the bill, officially making it easier for people to do the right thing. "This law exists because one woman showed us how justice should work," the president said in his remarks, gesturing to Maya. "She showed us that doing the right thing shouldn't require heroism. It should be supported, protected, encouraged." The Torres provision ensures that others who find themselves in impossible situations will have a path forward, just as Maya Torres did. Maya felt uncomfortable with the attention, but she understood its importance. If her story could make it easier for others to make similar choices, If it could help return more stolen property to rightful owners, then the discomfort was worth it. Dietrich Kessler died 3 years after his lawsuit was dismissed. Maya learned about it from Detective Morrison, who'd been tracking him. Died, broke, and bitter in a hotel room in Buenos Aires, Morrison reported. Spent his last years trying to drum up support for his grandfather's reputation. Nobody wanted to hear it. Maya felt no satisfaction in his death, only sadness. Another life, warped by the war, by the refusal to acknowledge evil, by the desperate need to justify the unjustifiable. His grandfather had been a monster, but Dietrich had been a man who couldn't accept that truth, who'd spent his life defending the indefensible and been destroyed by it. Some people can't let go, Morrison said. Can't admit their family was on the wrong side. It poisons everything. Maya thought about legacy then, about how the choices of one generation rippled through the next. Her father's choices had nearly poisoned her life, but she'd chosen differently, and Anna would inherit a different legacy. Not shame and secrets, but justice and integrity. When Anna graduated from law school, she gave a speech at the Man Penrose, the ceremony that left everyone in tears. She talked about her mother, about the choice that had defined their lives, about the responsibility that came with privilege, even privilege born from doing the right thing. My mother could have been a billionaire, Anna said. Instead, she chose to be a person who could look at herself in the mirror, who could tell her daughter that some things matter more than money. That justice isn't just an abstract concept, but a choice we make every day. I graduated today, without student debt, with a trust fund, with opportunities many of my classmates don't have. That's because my mother chose justice over wealth, and now it's my responsibility to justify that choice by using my advantages to help others, to be a voice for people who aren't heard, to work for a world where doing the right thing is the normal thing. Maya watched her daughter, tears streaming down her face, feeling a pride so intense it was almost painful. This was the real treasure. Not the gold, not the finder's fee, but this. A daughter who understood what mattered, who'd been raised to value justice over comfort, who would carry forward the lesson that ordinary people could make extraordinary choices. After the graduation ceremony, as they walked across campus, Anna said, "I've been thinking about what I want to do with my career. I want to work in international asset recovery, help families like the ones you helped. There's so much stolen property still out there, so many families still waiting for justice. I want to finish the work you started." Maya stopped walking, turning to face her daughter. "Anna, you don't have to. You can do anything you want with your life. You don't have to spend it carrying other people's burdens." "But I want to," Anna said simply. "Not because I have to, but because I can. Because I've been given advantages that give me the power to help. How can I not use them?" They stood there, mother and daughter, 3 generations removed from the choices that had defined them. Antonio Torres, who'd found gold and hidden it in shame. Maya Torres, who'd found the same gold and returned it in courage. And Anna Torres, who'd inherited the legacy of that choice and wanted to expand it. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you," Maya said. "So am I." "Tell me about him," Anna said. "The real story. Not the one for the museum or the articles, the one you remember." So Maya did. She told Anna about the father she'd loved and lost, the man who'd been broken by war and secrets, who died trying to do right, but never finding the way. She told her about the good memories and the bad, the love and the abandonment, the complexity of a man who'd been neither hero nor villain, but simply human, trying to navigate an impossible situation with inadequate tools. "He gave you life," Anna said when Maya finished. "And through you, he gave me life. And through his choice to leave you the boat, to give you the chance he never took, he gave us both something else. A purpose, a legacy worth carrying." Maya held her daughter, feeling the weight of 3 generations, feeling the burden lift and transform into something lighter. Not gone, never gone, but transmuted into meaning, into purpose, into a family story that was about more than theft and return. It was about redemption, about the possibility of making right what had been wrong, about the power of one choice to echo through time. That evening, they returned to the small house by the ocean, the home Maya had bought with a fraction of her finder's fee. It was modest compared to what she could have afforded, but it was theirs, filled with memories and love, and the quiet dignity of a life lived according to principle rather than profit. They sat on the deck, watching the sun set over the water, as they had so many times before. The same ocean that had brought the Valiente to America, that had witnessed her father's struggles, that had been there the day Maya made her choice. Do you ever think about what your life would have been like if you'd kept the gold? Anna asked. Maya considered. Sometimes, I imagine a bigger house, fancier cars, luxury vacations. But then I imagine having to explain to you, when you were old enough to understand, why we had wealth built on stolen property, why I chose money over justice. And I can't imagine that conversation. Can't imagine looking at you and admitting I'd chosen wrong. So you chose me, Anna said softly. I chose the person I wanted to be when I looked at you, Maya corrected. I chose the world I wanted you to grow up in. And yes, that meant choosing you. It always meant choosing you. They sat in comfortable silence as stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Maya thought about the path that had led them here, the choices made and unmade, the burdens carried and released. She thought about the families who'd gotten their gold back, the survivors who'd died in peace, the descendants who'd been given closure. She thought about her father, finally free of his shame, and herself, free of the burden of wealth she hadn't earned and couldn't keep. Most of all, she thought about Anna, about the young woman she'd raised to understand that some things mattered more than money, that justice was a choice made every day, that one person's courage could change the world. The Valiente still sat in the museum in Germany, teaching its lessons to new generations. But the real legacy wasn't in the boat or the gold, or even the laws that had been changed. It was here, in this moment, on this deck, between a mother and daughter who'd been given a terrible choice and made it together, before Anna was even born. Thank you, Mama, Anna said into the darkness, for choosing right, for showing me what matters, for giving me a legacy I can be proud of. Maya reached over and took her daughter's hand, holding it as she'd held it through so many moments, through the fear and the triumph, through the criticism and the praise, through everything that had come from one impossible choice made on a rotting boat with a pregnant belly and $100 bill. Thank you for being the reason it was worth it, Maya said, for being the treasure I was really saving. And there, on a deck overlooking the ocean, under a sky full of stars, 3 generations of Torres women felt the weight finally, completely lift. The burden had been carried, the choice had been made, the legacy had been transformed from shame to pride, from theft to justice, from silence to story. Some inheritances were meant to be kept, others were meant to be returned. But the greatest inheritance of all was the one Maya gave Anna, the knowledge that doing the right thing, even when it cost everything, was always worth it in the end. Because treasures could be stolen, money could disappear, but integrity, once claimed, could never be taken away. The ocean whispered its eternal rhythm against the shore. The stars wheeled overhead in their ancient dance, and in a small house by the sea, a mother and daughter sat together, wealthy in the only ways that mattered, rich beyond measure in the currency of conscience and courage and love. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.